One of the best-known Christian apologists in the United States, William Lane Craig, is here hoping to debate the existence of God. But many of this country's best-known atheists are reluctant to take him on. Why so?
I won't say I'm exactly looking forward to it, because he can be a very unpleasant debater. I do find his arguments difficult to engage with, and it's hard to believe on these occasions that he's genuinely engaged in a sort of disinterested search for the truth.
William Lane Craig will join us live. Now, do you remember the adverts on London buses which declared, "There's probably no God, now stop worrying and enjoy your life"? Well, there are buses driving around Oxford now adorned with the slogan, "There's probably no Dawkins, now stop worrying and enjoy October the 25th at the Sheldonian Theatre." The well-known biologist and atheist Richard Dawkins is being teased because he won't debate with William Lane Craig, an American philosopher and prominent Christian apologist. Professor Craig is about to embark on a tour of Britain with the support of Premier Christian Radio. Justin Brearley is one of the broadcaster's presenters.
The point we're trying to make is that Dawkins started a conversation about 5 years ago when he wrote The God Delusion. The problem is he's not willing to finish it. And we've got one of the biggest names, as an intellectual defender of Christianity, coming to Dawkins' hometown of Oxford, willing to have a dialogue, willing to engage with him, but Dawkins simply isn't stepping up.
But when the original adverts came out on the buses in London saying there's probably no God, you at Premier Christian Radio were furious. Is it really fair game to use this technique against one individual like this?
Well, I would say we were furious, actually. I think we thought it was rather an interesting way of starting a conversation. And indeed, I run a programme on Premier Christian Radio which regularly engages with atheists in dialogue over these kinds of issues. And in a sense, yes, it's sort of obviously mimicking the British Humanist campaign, but we hope that they don't mind that, given that they started it all off, a few years ago with their campaign. But we're not attacking Dawkins per se.
Yes, you are. I mean, you name him.
Yes, obviously we name him, but he is, as it were, the figurehead of a movement, which is, of course, the new atheism. And it's really that movement that we're critiquing, that we're questioning.
Well, the original bus advert was the work of the British Humanist Society. Andrew Copson is the Society's chief executive, and I asked him what he thought about the idea of debating with William Lane Craig.
Well, I understand why a lot of people don't want to debate with him one-on-one. The one-on-one occasions that he does are micromanaged, really, in terms of format to his advantage. They're often set-up occasions with largely Christian audiences who've come to see him. And a lot of people find his arguments slippery and contorted and very obscure, but plausible to the untrained eye. So they take a lot of refuting, and it's the sort of things you have to refute in writing afterwards. Live, it's quite difficult. So a lot of people don't like to debate him one-on-one, and I completely understand that.
And your own position is you're going to take him on at the Cambridge Union, but you also are not going to take him on one-on-one.
I'm participating in a debate on the existence of God at the Cambridge Union in which he's also participating, but it's not one of those situations where it's a set-piece one-on-one occasion like he wants to do and likes to do with other people. It's a normal Cambridge Union-style debate that they've organised, and I won't say I'm exactly looking forward to it, because I think that he can be a very unpleasant debater. I do find his arguments difficult to engage with, and it's hard to believe on these occasions that he's genuinely engaged in a sort of disinterested search for the truth. But yeah, I've agreed to do it.
Isn't it a bit feeble just to say that somebody argues in a way you can't deal with, that he's slippery and so forth? I mean, you ought to be able to deal with his arguments, oughtn't you, if you think he's wrong?
They can be dealt with, but the format in which these confrontations occur is not the format in which they are best dealt with. I mean, if someone makes an argument that is superficially plausible, but really you need to go 15 or 20 steps back in the reasoning to take it on, you can't really do that in the constraints of the format, especially the one-on-one debating format. You need to do it in a more thoughtful way at length. And so if you go online at the various blogs that review this guy and his performances, you'll find that his arguments are beautifully refuted, but it does take that back-thinking, that sort of fuller explanation and exposure to demonstrate that. It's impossible to do, really, with a 6-minute response to a 6-minute speech that then goes down to a 5-minute response in the format that is often preferred for these occasions. Another reason why people don't want to engage with him is whatever the actual result of the debate, in the past, as soon as it's over, all these groupies go online on various Christian blogs and YouTube and whatever, posting videos saying William Lane Craig thrashes insert famous atheist or humanist here. So I think the publicity machine that lies behind his endeavour endeavours is also pretty unpleasant.
You will see, I'm sure, that a lot of people will hear that a very well-known atheist like Richard Dawkins is refusing to engage in debate, and people will conclude that many atheists are frightened of him.
At all the occasions that I know of, he's got people who've agreed to speak against him, distinguished atheists, philosophers and scientists and different humanists. I think it'd be ridiculous to say, and it's self-aggrandizing for him to say and for his publicity machine to say, that somehow everyone's running scared of him or they won't engage on the issues. A.C. Grayling had very recently a long armchair conversation with the Archbishop of Canterbury. Richard Dawkins has shared a platform on numerous occasions with the Bishop of Oxford. Many people, humanists and atheists, are happy to engage with religious people on these questions. They just don't really want to engage with this guy for all the reasons that I've outlined.
Well, we're about to hear from the man you describe as this guy, but before we go on to that, what do you make of the advertising campaign on the Oxford buses, which of course is a reference to your own campaign? There's probably no Dawkins stop worrying and enjoy the date on which William Lane Craig is appearing.
I think it's a cheap shot, but it's a free country, and I hope that plenty of people do go along and refute him from the floor.
Well, Professor Craig is on the line now. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is a question to which I think I already know the answer, but do you plead guilty to any of that?
I don't think so. From what I heard, that was a number of personal aspersions that I don't think stick whatsoever.
Well, one of them is that you don't really engage in debate. You construct your arguments in a way which makes it impossible to have a fruitful conversation.
Yeah, it's just extraordinarily disingenuous. When Richard Dawkins or others go onto a university campus or public lecture forum, they give only one side of the argument. And what I do is choose not to go solo, but to give the other side an equal opportunity to speak to the student audiences so that students can hear both sides of an issue and then make up their own mind. It just strikes me as extraordinary that people would criticize me for giving the other side an equal chance to present their best case, which is what I always try to do.
Well, before we go on to the substance of one or two of the things you've said, just a quick word about this bus campaign. Do you think it is a little trivial, a little childish?
No, I thought it was very amusing myself, and I have to say there is no publicity machine. I'm not organizing this. I'm just the invited guest speaker. Anything that has been done to publicize or promote the campaign has been done here by the host groups that are inviting me to come. I've got nothing to do with it. But I was very amused when I saw the signs because it played so nicely off of that London bus campaign, There Probably Is No God. In this case, probably there is no Dawkins on October 25th at the Sheldonian Theatre. So what we've chosen to do is, if he doesn't show up, I'll simply give a lecture criticizing his arguments in his book, The God Delusion. But then we've invited a panel of 3 distinguished respondents, including professional philosophers, who will then respond to the talk that I give, and then I'll have a brief counter-response.
Well, let me raise with you, if I may, one of the more controversial areas that you talked about in the past, and it relates to the biblical story of the people of Israel leaving slavery in Egypt and returning to the land of Israel, and God, according to the Bible, tells them to kill the Canaanites who are currently living there, every man, woman and child, an act that today I suppose we'd probably call genocide. And you've written quite a lot about this, and you seem to be saying, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, you seem to be saying that genocide's all right if God instructs it.
Well, I think that's a misrepresentation of my position. What I said is that when God brought Israel out of slavery in Egypt, he held them there for 400 years until Canaanite culture had become so debauched, so reprobate, that they were ripe for divine judgment. And Israel was used as a means of judging these Canaanite tribes. And so what God did was not command genocide. That's a misrepresentation. What he commanded the armies of Israel to do is to dispossess the Canaanite tribes of the land. It was the land that was and remains in the Middle East so important to the people there. And so God told them, drive the Canaanites out of the land. And it was only those who chose to remain behind and fight that were killed. But they were not pursued. If they had chosen simply to leave the land, nobody would have died. So to characterize this as genocide is really quite a misrepresentation.
Well, let me read you a passage that you wrote, which I think some people may find slightly startling, relating again to this and to the fact that children were among those who were killed. Moreover, if we believe, as I do, that God's grace is extended to those who die in infancy or as small children, the death of these children was actually their salvation. We're so wedded to an earthly, naturalistic perspective that we forget that those who die are happy to quit this earth for heaven's incomparable joy. Therefore, God does these children no wrong in taking their lives. You stand by that, do you?
I do. Absolutely. I think that when we look at it from the wider perspective of a Christian point of view, to leave this life, to go to be with God forever, is profit. It's better.
But how can you know that they would be happy to quit this earth for heaven's incomparable joy?
Because I believe that salvation is given to persons who die in infancy. I think that that's what the Bible suggests. And therefore they go from a world of temporal goods to a realm of eternal, infinite, incomprehensible blessing. So that God has as the authoring sustainer of life, he has the right to give and take life as he chooses.
Professor Craig, forgive me, we must leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for joining us.